All right, my friends. I just pressed the Let's Go Live button. So that means we've got to wait for that stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the interwebs. Before we go ahead and get started, got to make sure those tubes are connected. It's a lovely Friday, and it looks like we are connecting, so that's tremendous. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let us do it, shall we? Right now. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about the Trump trials. We're going over to New York because we've got a trial happening very soon in Judge Juan Mercan's courtroom. And we have some jury instructions and some jury rules that are going to be now in place because a new order has dropped about juror names. Now, this is interesting because in New York, juror names apparently are a matter of public record. And in Arizona, that's not the case. So we don't, as public, get to see who the jurors are. But in New York, apparently, it's kind of the general rule there. But unless you're a defendant named, you know, Trump, then you don't get the same rules as everyone else. So there is now an order from Judge Mercan to say that the public cannot see these people's names, but Trump's attorneys can. We'll see what's going on there because, again, we're about 2 weeks away from the start of this criminal trial, and there are multiple felonies here, and this is kind of their final effort because the other 3 Trump trials look like they may not be going before the 2024 election. So all their eggs are starting to pile up in this one basket. And we are going to see what this order looks like from Judge Juan Mercan. You see him there from New York. This is the Alvin Bragg trial. And Alvin Bragg is the prosecutor. This is the judge. And we're also waiting on a gag order ruling and some other things. So we are going to talk about that one. Then we're going to see what's happening elsewhere in New York because Trump posted the $91,630,000 bond, which is a lot of money. All right, $100 million has been now dropped from Trump over into a bond company, an insurance company. We'll see who's posting it. We'll look at all of the documents, but they filed this in conjunction with their notice of appeal, saying that now is the time to take this up to the higher level court and see what they have to say about all this. So we'll see what is inside. You can see Donald Trump's signature is right there. So he signed off on this puppy, and that's not a fun thing that you have to sign in your life, right? $91 million to E. Jean Carroll. Okay, now it's not going to her. It's going into escrow, essentially, in a bond, being held in bond while the appeal is pending. And so we'll talk about what all that means and take a look at some of the documents. E. Jean Carroll celebrating. Apparently she has a newsletter, which is just outstanding. So, in not a good way. And she's like sending everybody a newsletter, probably with anger on, all their anti-Trumpers over there. And she's celebrating this. New York Times gobbled up everybody's statements about this. They're all super excited about this on X, all over the socials. They're very excited. Where did Trump get this money? What company helped him do this? They're all like, tear him down, because they're just such bitter little babies, including this baby called Jim Acosta. I think that's his name. Hard to tell. No one really talks about him at all. But anyways, he was crying about these appeals. He's like, why does Trump get to appeal all of his cases? You were like, because that's law and due process in America, dum-dum. He's, I guess, apparently wants a whole separate set of appeals. Like, enough's already. Can't we just execute this man? They're all just out of control. So we'll see what some of this looks like over there in New York as it relates to the E. Jean Carroll verdict and the appeals. And then we're going down to Georgia to see what's up with big Fani Willis. And we got really seriously fannied yesterday when we were waiting for that hearing to happen, and it got canceled right under our noses. Not happy about that. But we are back because now Fani, yesterday we talked about this idea that Judge McAfee now has a challenger. And his challenger is a pretty interesting one because it seems like it is not going to be a very good even election for our friend Judge McAfee. Now, this challenger is going to change the dynamics of the politics of this whole case. Not only are we executing in the court of law, but we also have the court of public opinion. And this changes that whole balance of power If McAfee's running unopposed, that's different than if he's running opposed. And of course, if that other candidate happens to be kind of a well-known person with a big base, it's going to make it hard for McAfee. But that then leads to the question, well, if McAfee knows and reads the writing on the wall, then maybe he has the total freedom to now operate only in the court of law and really can not be beholden to the court of public opinion. Anyways, we'll talk about it. We've also got this, because Fani also has challengers now emerging. Two people, and we'll talk about them both. This guy, Christian Wise Smith, is running against Fani, and we'll also see that Courtney Kramer is also running against Fani. And both of these two have some pretty big public presences, and we'll take a look at both of them. I've got some videos queued up that we can unpack together. Also, Donald Trump and Joe Biden are going to be in Georgia this weekend, just a stone's throw away from each other as they battle for the Georgia votes. Of course, that's going to be a big state. If hopefully there's no water main breaks this year, but it will hopefully go back red without those water main breaks. Should have gone that way already. And our friend Viva, he was watching our stream yesterday, and he happened to catch the heartbreak that we all experienced when our hearing at the ethics board was canceled. Ha! And so Viva made a nice video about that, and so we'll share some of that here a little bit later. We've also got a new filing. It's a short one, but it came from co-defendant David Shafer. He is on X, and he could certainly use your follow and your support. And he and his team submitted another reply to Fani Willis. She submitted her final statement, her final brief after the evidentiary hearing, and we read through that whole thing yesterday, where she was crying about the standard, it should be much higher, like beyond a reasonable doubt, and she was saying it should be an actual impropriety, actual conflict, not just the appearance of a conflict, and we talked about all that. It was an interesting motion to see what their arguments are, but now Shafer is responding, and he was saying, look, if we want to have this contested, no problem. Let's just go ahead and reopen the evidence, shall we? So that we can see it and unpack it all. And Alina Habba was on with some reaction talking about what's going on down in Georgia. And so let's see what's happening out there. As you can see, we've got four good segments today, a little shorter segments. We've got 4 good segments to unpack. And we are grateful that you are here and with us, joining us today. Of course, as soon as we're done here, we like to debrief and go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It's our members-only community. We already did a live stream this morning, and we had a great talk about the State of the Union shenanigans that went on last night, that stupid pony show, dog pony soldier show, all those knuckleheads and, you know what I mean, in DC, all of them thinking that they're amazing, patting themselves on the back. All right, we talked about that. You can hear me, rant about that over there. But we have a great community. We have a lot of fun. We also do streams on Saturday, streams in the morning, and we would love to have you join us over there. We've also got robertgovea.com, and we have our new calendar. So if you want to stay apprised about what's happening, because there is a lot coming up, you can just go to robertgovea.com, click here. This is a Google Calendar. It's free. You can just click this button right here, add to Google Calendar, just add it to your calendar, and you can see we're getting everything scheduled here. So not only are the show times scheduled, but we also have the trials that are coming up. So like Alvin Bragg is coming up on the 25th. We start with jury selection over there. And then next month, we got a bunch of stuff, a bunch of Trump immunity and SCOTUS brief deadlines, and then oral arguments happen on Thursday, the 25th, 7 a.m. So the point is, you can add this to your calendar. We're going to get a lot more populated because our team is currently, sifting through all the stuff we want to put on here. But you can check that out, add it to your calendar. That way, you don't miss a thing. We also have a newsletter over there so that everything that we talk about here, let's get bundled up and delivered to your email. And that's a good way you could stay connected to what we're doing here. And watcherlodge.com, our sovereignty and self-development community. A lot of fun stuff happening over there as well. All right. So without any further ado, let's get into it, because we've got some business to attend to here today. And it's a beautiful Friday. And I think everything's working okay, right? Locals. Hopefully. Yeah, it was a little painful listening to Joe last night. No doubt about that. Some people woke up with a little bit of a Biden hangover, you know what I mean? Not good. Hopefully we're all recovered. All right, let's get to it. Judge Juan Merchan issued a new order in the Trump trial that's coming up in New York. Alvin Bragg is the prosecutor in this case. This goes back to the Stormy Daniels so-called hush money case with the perjurer Michael Cohen as the government's star witness. But we're getting very close to trial date, and so we're getting some rules now situated around the jurors. And Judge Juan Merchan, this guy right here, is presiding over this, and he has come out with a new order about the jurors and about the juror names and whether the public can hear the juror names. Now, we cannot. Now, in Arizona, this is pretty normal. We don't have juror names as part of the public record, but in New York, apparently they do, unless you're like a terrorist or a mob boss and there's potential for witness intimidation and stuff like that, or if you're Donald Trump, right? Because he's basically a terrorist, so he gets those rules as well, not the normal rules in New York. But let's talk about this with some background from the New York Times. I think, no, this is from Spectrum News over in New York. From the AP, they say that Trump and his team will be able to know the names of the jurors at the upcoming trial, but the public will not. Now, jurors' names, they tell us, are typically public record, but courts sometimes allow exceptions to protect the jury, most notably in cases involving terrorism and organized crime, or Donald Trump, or when there's been prior jury tampering. So Juan Merchan, we'll read through the full order because they have a little, they have some actual testimony and some excerpts from prior hearings that are interesting. But he ruled on Thursday that they are going to be anonymous, limited exceptions, only the former President Trump, only defense lawyers, prosecutors, jury consultants, and legal staff can know about these people. Now, you understand why you might want to know the names of these people, obviously, because if somebody's a juror on the list and you're like, is that Mark Elias? Is that a blogger from Huffington Post over there? Like, who is that person over there? What are you doing there? And you want to look into their background and say, hey, that's probably not an ideal juror, even though they sit there like, I'm fair and impartial, and I'm just a lawyer, and I just work in what, you want to kind of dig into those people and look at their backgrounds. Take a look at their social media posts and the other things. There's whole teams about, who do juror research. Who are these people? And it's kind of a science, actually. So many would say that. Other attorneys would say that's all hogwash. It's just nonsense. Just pick a jury, So you never know what you're going to get. You're all kind of just rolling the dice like at a casino. But the point is, so the story here goes, only Trump's lawyers and prosecutors will be allowed to know their addresses and their workplaces. Trump could risk forfeiting the names if he discloses them publicly. We'll read through what the judge said. Now, the ruling came from the prosecutors. It applies not only to the jurors seated at the trial, but also to prospective jurors who may be also summoned. Now, it stopped short, of having a fully anonymous jury, but that's what happened with Trump in the federal civil trials. And rules, of course, are a little bit different in civil trials, a little more strict. But federal civil trials involving the writer E. Jean Carroll. So Trump had no idea who these people were. In those trials, not even Trump nor his lawyers knew those jurors' names. So they could have had, a Liz Cheney lookalike on there, and they would have no idea. Juror names are typically public record, but not in this case. Now, the judge has said, however, that he has no plans to close the courtroom or for jury selection or at any other time during the trial. And this is something I've been waiting to hear about, whether we're going to have cameras in the courtroom or not. So access to the courtroom by the public and the press will not be tempered in any way, he wrote. Trump is accused in the hush money case. Michael Cohen, of course, the convicted perjurer, the guy who lied again and again and again, is going to be their key witness. And so let's jump into the opinion and the filing that came out from the judge. So, and I want to show you kind of how biased this is. This is not going to be a favorable environment for Trump at all. And you can just tell just based on the language and the structure of this filing. So the judge writes this. This is the decision and order on Alvin's motion for a protective order, regulating the disclosure of juror information, saying, coming from Juan Merchan, the judge. They say, all right, Trump is charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. And if you're just joining us on this trial, remember it's 34 counts, but it's basically, they're all document crimes. So like, I forget the exact specifics, but Cohen sends Trump an invoice, right? So you have an invoice, that's one line item, all right? So that's one. Then Trump writes a check, okay? So that's two. Then there's a bookkeeping entry, and then that's 3. And then someone else, reconciles the account, whatever. There's another entry after it, the check is cashed, whatever, and that's entry 4, false entry, whatever. So all this, right? It's like 4 charges for every transaction. So an invoice, a check, the bookkeeping entry, and reconciliation after the fact. Once it's cashed and bookkeeper says this is paid, whatever, close it out. So and the check is like the creation of the forged document. So it's like a bookkeeping entry, the creation of the check, whatever it is, right? Times however many charges. So like times a year, 9 months, whatever it was. He skipped a month for payments, whatever. But every single transaction, this is stuff you normally do. You just pay an invoice for a lawyer, right? A lawyer sends you a bill, you pay it. Both people put it on their entries. You talk to somebody about it, you approve it. All that's fraudulent pursuit. So it's falsifying business records, right? Every one of those was a business record, every entry in the ledger. Now the chart, meaning they make it sound like this is a monstrous thing. It's like this dude just got an invoice and wrote a check. That's what happened. So the charges arrive from allegations that Trump attempted to conceal an illegal scheme to influence the presidential election with this, Stormy Daniels money. An illegal scheme to influence. Now, specifically, Bragg claims that Trump directed Michael Cohen, who worked for his company, to pay $130,000 to an adult film actress shortly before the election to stop her from publicizing an alleged encounter with Trump. Now, Trump then reimbursed the attorney for the payments through a series of checks and caused the business records associated with the repayments to be falsified to conceal his criminal conduct. And I really would have liked, an alleged on that one. So, he just says, alleged, like it's very kind of conclusive. Judge is already saying, I kind of did this stuff. Every now and then we get kind of an alleged tucked in there. Arises from allegations, right? We want to be clear about this. Now, trial on this matter is scheduled to commence on March 25th, just short time from here. It's happening right around the corner. Criminal trial, 34 felonies. Now we have the people filed the instant motion for a protective order. This is Bragg, seeking 3 forms of relief. First, talking about the jurors. The people of this court ask this court to restrict the disclosure of the business or the residential address of any juror who's come in here. Second, they ask this court to invoke its inherent authority to prohibit the disclosure of the juror names other than to parties in counsel. And they want to ask this court, Judge Juan, to explicitly give notice to Trump. They want to lecture. Okay, that's what this is. Can you please lecture him that any harassing or disruptive conduct that threatens the safety or the integrity of the jury may result in forfeiture of access to juror names? So if he starts talking, garbage on the jurors, they're going to say, that's it. Your privileges are released. And Trump, and, Judge, because Trump's like, a child, we need you to go scold him right now. So Trump filed a response. He sent that back on March 4th. He actually consents to the first 2 requests. He says, yeah, no problem. We don't really care about their names or addresses, and we don't really care if the public has them or not either. That's fine. Specifically, Trump says he does believe that a protective order is appropriate. Yeah, that's fine. Now, regarding the people's second requests, he said, and the second request was prohibit the disclosure of juror names other than to parties in counsel. So Trump agrees with number 1. Number 1 says, don't give their addresses out. He says, no problem, happy to do that. Number 2, what about disclosing their names? He says, the order should be expanded to also include the individuals employed by counsel of record, right? So not just the lawyers, but also our team, also people who are on our staff. We've got interns who are working here, paralegals, jury consultants, all that stuff. Just broaden it out a little bit. We're fine. They also asked this court to take precautions to minimize prejudice to Trump, such as by not notifying jurors of the existence of protective measures unless the jurors make an inquiry, and then provide neutral explanations for the procedures. So when the jurors say, ask questions about this, don't tell them that we have to protect you because Trump is a dangerous man. Like, well, why? How come this is anonymous and this is anonymous and I can't do this? I thought it was this way. When they ask those questions, just say, well, this is just how we decided to do it for this trial. It's a new COVID, whatever. Come up with some reason for it. But you don't tell them, well, that's because we think Trump's going to get you killed. They're like, what? Trump's going to get me killed? Perfect. I'm going to go rule against this guy. You know, these are people who are oftentimes totally, non-political, apolitical, kind of just removed from a lot of this. So he says, okay, if you're going to do that, just make sure there's a neutral explanation for the procedures, no problem. And finally, Trump asks this court to reject Bragg's request. So now we get some conflict. Reject the request that it provide notice to the defendant that engaging in certain conduct could result in the loss of his statutory right. The law there says that he has a right to access the names. So don't give him the lecture. And so this is the judge writing, Judge Juan Mercan. He gives us some background. He says, all right, well, here's the law. It says the law says that the court can, with good cause, make some changes to these rules. And if we think that there might be jury tampering or physical injury of the jurors or harassment of the jurors, I can make some modifications. Now, although the parties here disagree as to the basis for the order, they do agree a protective order is appropriate. So Trump says, look, I'm not harassing anybody. Okay, we're not conceding that for a second. But sure, this is a big public case, and a lot of people might, maybe Antifa is going to come harass these people. Maybe other organizations will that are on the lefty side. So we'll leave them up. Sure, we'll protect them. No problem. Now, having considered the arguments advanced by the people in their motion and by Trump in his response, this court concurs a protective order is good. And the court further finds good cause on the record before it that, here, look at this, that there is a likelihood of bribery, jury tampering, and of physical injury and harassment of the jurors, right? That's a little bit of I think, a poke in the eyeball to Trump. Who's bribing jurors out there? Like Trump's going to go bribe the jurors or jury tamper all these people? So he says they disagree. In other words, the judge is saying, look, they disagreed about why we need these jurors. But I do find that there's a substantial likelihood of bribery, jury tampering, or physical injury or harassment of the jurors. So I think he just tucked those in, okay? Like this would have been enough, the physical injury, because you don't know really where that's coming from. This is a criminal case. So the idea is that the prosecutors are not jury tampering, right? The presumption is that they're not the ones doing the bribing. They're not the ones doing the tampering. So who's the only one left if it's Trump and Bragg? It's Trump. So there's a likelihood of bribery or jury tampering. Like, in other words, the judge could have left that off, right? He could have said there's a likelihood of physical injury and harassment. Maybe there is harassment. It's a big case. A lot of people on a lot of different, levels of wellness in our country. People send letters in and people, look people up and things get bad. So sure, protect them. But bribery and jury tampering is a justification. Get out of here. So the second request, they say, so, okay, protective orders in place, no addresses, no businesses, and I'm fine with that. Okay, that's not a big deal. Sure, why do you need their addresses? But you might want their names, right? Because maybe you want to look up who they are. And maybe that person has a long history when they sit there in court. Like we saw this in the Derek Chauvin case. Jurors are a little dishonest about what their backgrounds are, what their involvement in politics are. Did you ever attend a George Floyd rally? No, never have. No, never have. Weird. Chauvin gets convicted. We see later, you did. So stuff like that happens all the time. And the power of the internet, of course, can bring down some serious scrutiny upon whatever needs to be scrutinized. And so you can see why that might be a little problematic. So they protect that. Now, second request about stopping the disclosure of names to the public. So not only their addresses, but now their names. Both parties also agree, Trump and Bragg, that there needs to be a protective order preventing and prohibiting the disclosure of the juror names other than to parties and counsels. That's us. Trump also consents and asks this court to expand the disclosure of names to other consultants. Now, the court has examined Bragg's motion and together with the accompanying exhibits in support of this protective order, and I find their arguments compelling. For example, they say that Trump has an extensive history of publicly and repeatedly attacking trial jurors and grand jurors. What? People's motion at 2 to 5, exhibits 1 through 9. The motions, affirmations, and exhibits of the respective parties are incorporated by reference here. And I don't think those are here in this filing. So they're saying Trump is attacking jurors. And they probably have a bunch of tweets and stuff in there. We'll see what that looks like. But my recollection is that most of Trump's criticisms have been towards the judges and the prosecutors, not the jurors. So we'll see. Now they continue. So the judge is just, all right, yeah, Trump is harassing. He's gonna be the one responsible for this. It's not crazy people, who happen to just be unwell. It's like Trump is orchestrating this. It's that he speaks and he causes that stochastic terrorism to happen against everyone, right? We've seen this with Chutkan. Now, therefore, this court agrees with the parties and finds good cause exists for the issuance of a protective order and the disclosure, prohibiting the disclosure other than to the parties and to counsel. So, other consultants will not get it. Now, further, this court adopts the defendant's request, and it does expand it to those including staff and consultants. So a little strangely worded there, but Trump gets it, lawyers get it, and third parties who are connected to the defense get it. Now, as also requested by Trump, this court will take reasonable precautions to minimize any potential prejudice to either party, except when you're running for an election and you have to sit there for 6 weeks. The precautions may include not disclosing the existence of protective measures unless absolutely necessary to allay juror concerns and providing neutral explanations. So Trump wins on that one too. To be clear, now the parties have not requested, and thus this court has not agreed to close the courtroom during jury selection or at any other time during the proceedings. Access to the courtroom by the public and the press will not be tempered in any way as a result of these protective measures. And an open question that I still have not found the answer to is whether this is going to be televised or not, whether the media will have a pool feed and we'll see what's happening inside. Now, the third request, which is about the lecture. So Alvin Bragg wants Trump to be lectured, and they said, okay, now the court will rule on their third request when it addresses a separate motion. This is about restricting Trump's extrajudicial statements. They said it's sufficient right now here to remind Trump and all parties to this action, including counsel. Now, the judge put this in italics. Whoa. So he must be in serious business. Thanks, Judge. And all parties to this action, including counsel, of this court's prior instructions. So he's saying that maybe he'll give him a lecture later, but he's definitely going to give him a lecture now. You see how that worked? I'll hold off on ruling on whether you're going to get a lecture, but let me give him the old lecture that I already gave him. I gave prior instructions, right? He says April 4th, March 4th, and May 23rd. And watch what this judge does. Let's read it. He says, at the defendant's arraignment, okay, when Trump came here for court date number 1, this court asked counsel for both parties. And the judge is like quoting himself, I think, which is fun, right? He's like, I'm so good. Watch me just quote myself. I love myself. Here, let me quote myself on 4 days, 3 days, multiple days. He's like, wow, I did such a good job on that arraignment. Here's what he said on April 4th last year. Please speak to your witnesses. Defense counsel, that's Trump's lawyer, speak to your client and anybody else you need to and remind them to please refrain from making statements that are likely to incite violence or civil unrest. What on earth? Okay. Yeah, stop making statements that are likely to incite violence or civil unrest. What are you talking about? Please refrain from making comments or engaging in conduct that has the potential to incite violence, create civil unrest, or jeopardize the safety or well-being of any individual. Like, is this a new statute or what is he talking about? Also, please do not engage in words or conduct which jeopardizes the rule of law, particularly as it applies to those proceedings in this courtroom. All right, so we have totally subjective standards. No one knows what that means. You have first of all, you have the First Amendment, okay? So I don't know what, and he's going to say that's all hobbled and limited by your criminal courtroom proceedings, which I would say, no, sorry about that. First Amendment comes first. It's highest priority. One of the key defenses to a corrupt criminal justice system, like the one we're observing and witnessing here in multiple jurisdictions in this country, is your free speech. You have to be able to talk about the hack partisan prosecution that's coming against you so that people can know about it, be disgusted about it like we are, be energized, and rally to the cause in defense of that person. So when they gag you, when this judge comes out and says a bunch of garbage like this, making statements that are likely to incite violence or civil unrest, like what? This prosecution is illegitimate? Can he say that? That Michael Cohen is a liar, convicted perjurer, someone who lied again in court in New York just a week ago, whenever that was. Please refrain from making statements. Well, this is ridiculous. This is like insulting. So here, he says it again. He loved that, though. He's like, man, good job. So he practices it, probably in the mirror. He goes there April 4th. He practices it. Or actually, April 4th was the first time. He probably has a similar speech. Let's see what he said next time. He said, Mr. Trump, you obviously have the right to be present at every stage, and that is obviously a very, very important right because it allows you to assist your attorneys in their defense of you. Yeah, it's very important to also get him off the campaign trail for 6 to 8 weeks, right? That's part of the nice, important right. So you got to be present. Now, it allows them to consult with you in their defense of you. Now, I think it's definitely advantageous to have the jurors, if there is a jury, to see you present. Absolutely true. And that is a true fact, right? Like if your defendant is not in the courtroom in their criminal trial, the jurors looking around going, okay, this guy doesn't care about his future. Why should I? So for all those reasons, I'm sure you can appreciate that the right to be present at your trial and your proceedings is important. And I'm required by law to inform you that there are ways you can waive your right to be present. But specifically, I would like to refer to 2 specific areas. You can waive your right to be present if you voluntarily absent yourself from the proceedings. So if it's determined at some point down the road that you're not present at some stage because you chose not to be present, I do have authority to find you voluntarily waived your right to be present and to continue the proceedings in your absence. Mr. President, Mr. Trump, do you understand that? Yes, I do. A second way you can lose your right to be present or waive your right is to become disruptive, right? If you become disruptive to such a degree that it affects my ability to preside over this case, I do have the authority to remove you from the courtroom and continue in your absence. Do you understand that? I do. Transcript continues. Now, I have to apply the law. This is the judge as I see it. And in that regard, I'm bending over backwards. Yeah, right. And straining to make sure that Trump is given every opportunity possible to advance his candidacy. Yeah. And to be able to speak in furtherance of his candidacy. But with that comes responsibility. That his words, especially when used in the form of rhetoric, can have consequences. Therefore, I am not going to do anything with respect to this protective order or anywhere else to infringe on your client's First Amendment rights. Right. Nor am I going to do anything to limit his ability to offer views on the case, to speak on his experience with the case. He is certainly free to do that. He's also free to speak on the vast majority of the evidence because the vast majority came from the defense, and the protective order does not apply to the evidence that was produced to the people by the defense. So the protective order applies to only that evidence which the brag people themselves have obtained and generated and garnered, and I think that's pretty narrow. So in other words, like the Cohen documents and all the business records, all those entries, the check stub, the entry, the bookkeeping, all the records, all that was really Trump records. She's like, they're yours essentially, so do what you want. Says, I think that's pretty narrow. I'm trying to do everything I can to be as narrow and focused as I can be here. And I think if I were to sign a protective order, at least that paragraph as written, there is nothing there that would prevent your client from being able to not only speak about the case and speak out in his defense, but also to speak powerfully and persuasively without the need to start attacking individuals. Disclosing names, addresses, cell phones, identities, or on those lines. That's just not necessary to advance his candidacy. He says, yeah, we agree with that. Trump's lawyer. Okay, yeah, we don't need to disclose names and stuff. That's fine. Thanks for the talk. Another hearing, May 4th. Now, Mr. Trump, there are a couple of reasons why we're having this hearing today. Primarily, we want to go over the protective order. On May 8th, Mr. Trump, I was given a copy of the protective order that incorporated my rulings and incorporated the agreements that the parties had come to. That is the protective order I signed. Now, Mr. Trump, do you have a copy of that protective order? Trump says, yes, I do. And Trump's lawyer, Mr. Blanche, have you had an opportunity to review the protective order with your client? Yes, Your Honor. I have. And have you reviewed each of the 9 so ordered paragraphs that are contained inside that protective order? I have, Your Honor, and I've discussed it at length as well. Were there any issues that your client comes into today's hearing not understanding? Does your child client Trump know? Or any outstanding issues that he would like to resolve at this time? Trump's attorney says, nothing to resolve, Your Honor. Certainly our objection that we have noted in our papers, Mr. Trump is concerned that his First Amendment rights are being violated by this protective order. I have explained to him that that is not Your Honor's intention, and that you have made clear previously that that is not your intention, and that this is not a gag order, and that he is free to speak about the case and to defend himself subject to the limitations in the protective order. Judge says, yes, that's true. It's certainly not a gag order, and it's certainly not my intention to in any way impede Mr. Trump's ability to campaign for the presidency of the United States. He's certainly free to deny the charges. He's free to defend himself against the charges. He's free to campaign. He's free to do just about anything that does not violate the specific terms of this protective order. Trump's attorney says, I agree with you, Your Honor. I do not believe it's necessary to go line by line through this. Now, did you also explain to your client, Mr. Trump, that this order constitutes a mandate of this court? Yes, I did. And did you explain to him what that means? Yes, Your Honor. Yes, he understands that he has to comply with the order, and if he doesn't do so, he's violating Your Honor's court order. Yeah, he gets it. And a violation of a court mandate, he's looking at Trump, could result in sanctions. There are a wide range of sanctions, too. They could include up to a finding of contempt, and you can explain that to your client. Todd says, okay, understood, Your Honor. Yeah, I got it. So then he comes back and he says, so given the fact that I already told him 4 times and explained all this, myself, copy and paste my transcript. He's like, I love what I did there. Great work. Fabulous job. So he says, therefore, with all of this that he just regurgitates for us, he says it is hereby ordered that the people Bragg's motion for a protective order restricting disclosure of the business or the residential address or any other prospective or sworn juror is granted. So it can go other than the counsel of record, and it is further granted to prohibit disclosure to those other than counsel, but modified as Trump requested. Staff and consultants are okay. Also ordered that they shall jointly submit to this court no later than Friday, 1 week from today, neutral explanations so that the jurors know that this is not because Trump is a maniac who wants everybody dead, as Alvin Bragg says, or this judge thinks. If the parties are unable to agree on the language of the proposals, then each party is to submit a separate proposal and so on. Then clerk of the court is going to take further action. And it's also ordered that a decision on the motion for explicit notice to Trump that any harassing or disruptive conduct that threatens the integrity of this proceeding is reserved. All right. So this judge is just like, okay, I'm going to save my lecture for later. All right. Pending the decision of my other motion about restricting his extrajudicial statements. So in the interim, Trump, and again, italicized, man, he's not as bad as Fani Willis. That's not caps. Okay. Like one variable, one alteration is fine. Okay. Either bold it, underline it, italicize it, or capitalize it, but don't do all 4 of them at the same time. All right. Relax. You're going crazy, but that's Fanny land. This is just regular old Mercan. So he says all parties to this action, including counsel, are reminded of this court's prior instructions. Behave yourself. Remember what I said on April 4th, March 4th, and May. This is my decision. Judge Juan Mercan, out there in New York. And my friends, trial is right around the corner, March 25th, and it's all coming soon. Multiple felony charges in New York, criminal trial afoot. And so we're going to be covering this one at length. Thank you for subscribing and joining us as we do. There's going to be a lot to cover here. And if you want to get the calendar dates on your calendar of the trial, you can go to robertgovea.com/calendar. You can see the Alvin Bragg trial. This is what it looks like. They're blocking out about 6 to 8 weeks for this thing. So in trial, Trump will be there in trial. All of this purple, every one of these weeks are trial days as far as we know. So We're going to be covering it, my friends. Thanks for joining us. Links in the description below. We'll see you back here on the next one. But we're not done yet. We're still in New York, and we carry on because Trump has a lot going on there. Donald Trump submits his appeal and also posts bond in the E. Jean Carroll case, $91 million and change. That's a lot of money. And Trump signed the paperwork. A lot of this making its way around the interwebs. A lot of people on the left wondering, how did he get $91 million? Where'd all this come from? What companies are helping him do this? Why can't we just take all of his property, assets, and goods and then throw him in the river over the boat? Constantly from them. He just is going through the process, appealing this, as is his lawful right under American law. And people like Acosta come out and cry. Can't we get this guy already? They can't stop thinking about him. So let's take a look at what's going on. First of all, Trump submitted the notice of appeal, and they're very upset about this. It's a 3-pager. And again, this is just a notice. So the memorandum of the appeal will be coming down later. But this is the E. Jean Carroll case. You remember her. She's the woman who said she got Bergdorfed in a dressing room at Bergdorf. And the jury came back out and said, no, you didn't. Nobody Bergdorfed anybody. And in my opinion, the jury came back out and said there was a little DJ Diddle action going on, grab him by the purse situation because of Trump's prior statement about that. And he was talking locker room talk out there on, the bus with those guys in Hollywood, wherever that was. So the story is that now Trump wants to appeal this because there were some serious problems with the underlying trial. Evidence was kept out. E. Jean Carroll is a whack job, in my humble opinion, and she had a bunch of evidence that the juries never even saw about what she was saying in her books and all sorts of other places. So the story just didn't add up, and we'll see a lot of that fleshed out, but this is just filing the notice, and you can see it's short and sweet. They say this is notice given by Trump as he appeals to the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in New York, right above New York, that awarded E. Jean $83 million in damages. What a joke. Oh my gosh, it makes my skin crawl. $83 million. That's like, you know what size company that is? It's crazy. All the jobs and people something like that would have created. Like, what did Trump have to build to get $83 million? How many people had to be employed? What type of actual progress needed to be generated? And some woman who paints trees blue in the forests makes up a claim for 30 years ago that a jury didn't even believe about being AR'd. They said no. They said, you're not credible. Sorry, you're not credible. Get out of here. And she gets $83 million. Crazy. All from it's a state attack, just so we're clear on what this is, right? It's not an aberration of the law. It's an orchestrated state attack, just to be clear. I don't want to be joking about what's happening. It is actually one prong of a multifaceted agenda that we're observing here and covering here in depth. So anyways, the appeal is now filed. The notice of appeal is filed. They say all of the conclusions, all of the final findings preceding this case now up on appeal. Alina Habba signed this one with D. John Sauer on behalf of Trump. And this is, of course, the final order that is on appeal. You see Judge Lewis Kaplan, he just scribbles this here, right? Happy done with this one. And he says $83 million. Now, the total appeal is for more because it includes interest and other penalties. But that is what is now happening. So Trump has submitted the appeal, and they are also posting the bond. So Alina Habba has got this taken care of. And here is her declaration submitted into the court in front of Judge Lewis Kaplan, telling them that they've come up with the money. They say, look, I, Alina Habba, under U.S. law, I am managing partner of the firm Habba, Madeo and Associates. I'm counsel for President Trump. And I submit this declaration in support of the instant motion for an order recognizing the bond that was obtained by President Trump in the amount of $91,630,000 and to approve it as conforming to the requirements outlined under the rules. Now, here's how it works. On February 8th, this court entered judgment. They wanted compensatory and punitive damages, $83,300,000 to E. Jean, because that's how much damage was caused to her. And the jury also wanted to punish Trump. So Trump filed a notice of appeal March 8th, and that was on the first trial. Pursuant to this proceeding, President Trump has now obtained a bond issued by the federal insurance company for $91,630,000. That's a lot of super chats, all right? A true and accurate copy of this bond is here annexed as Exhibit A. The federal rules of procedure provide for the posting of bond, and it stays the execution on the judgment. So they say here, at any other time after the judgment, a party may obtain a stay on the execution of the judgment by providing a bond or other security. The stay takes effect when the court approves the bond or other security and remains in effect for the time specified in the bond. So, very simple explanation for how appeals work is a traffic ticket. You get, and this was a civil case, often civil traffic cases are, you get a traffic ticket for speeding, you're going 15 over, okay, civil. They charge you, you contest it. Let's say you go to a hearing, you contest it, you lose. Cop shows up, you have a hearing, he says, nah, whatever. Judge says 50-50 or 60-40. Preponderance says cop is right, you lose, right? So fines $250. You say, you know what, I want to appeal this because I think there was a problem here. You can certainly do that, and you can avoid the traffic conviction and the points that associate the traffic conviction from going onto your record if you post the bond. You post the bond, you file the appeal works its way up. If you win the appeal and the case gets dismissed, guess what? Now you get the bond back and nothing went on your license. No points, no consequences of anything. It's not a judgment that was entered. Similarly, if you lose, right? If you go up and you lose, then the court, all they do is they just accept the bond. So they take your money that's already held in escrow. They just take that, then they enter the judgment and the points and everything goes on your record and you get that conviction. So same type of thing here, right? Putting it in escrow so that they can let the appeal work its way up. If the appeal comes back down, of course, they'll appeal to the Supreme Court, but this money will be held safe, theoretically. So they say, Alina continues, approval of this bond by this court is requisite to formalize the stay of the enforcement, and the bond secures President Trump's monetary obligations under the judgment and serves as a guarantee for satisfaction of the same if the appeal does not prove meritorious. So Trump respectfully requests that this court recognize the bond obtained by Trump in the sum of $91 million and is approve it as adequate and sufficient to stay the enforcement of the judgment to the extent that the judgment awards damages pending the ultimate disposition of Trump's appeal. Alina says, I declare under penalty of perjury, this is true. Says, I've gotten it all taken care of and it has been submitted. So here's some of the paperwork. We can just see what this looks like. This is the bond. You see Trump as the defendant, E. Jean Carroll as the plaintiff. She sued Trump. The maximum amount, wow, $91 million. That's a lot. They say, right, all this is, legalese. And here's the principle. Donald Trump, with a copy sent to Alina Habba, the surety bond is Federal Insurance Company, Eastern Claim Service Center, Chubbs, and they say, here you go. Donald Trump signs this. Principal defendant Trump signing his name off as they secure $91 million. Just wild. So this guy also signs it. Douglas Irvin, probably going to get the wrath of the left. How could you help Trump get this? Ridiculous. So all this acknowledged, Palm Beach, Florida, signed there, notary public sat there, watched all this happen right in front of them. So as you can see, it is more essentially, theft of Trump's hard work, hard assets over the years. You just have these claims pop up and then poof, gone. So they filed this notice as well. Alina Habba told the judge, hey, just so you know, we've got this bond. This motion is supported by my declaration and other things. And the judge issued a response to this today. He said, after 10:30 a.m. today, Trump filed an application to approve a bond in the amount of $91 million and to stay the execution of the judgment. They say plaintiff E. Jean Carroll, this is Lewis Kaplan, the judge writing, shall file any opposition to this, including but not limited to the form, the amount, or the surety of the proposed bond or the proposed order, or her consent to the relief sought by the motion no later than Monday. In the event that there is opposition, the court will hear this on March 11th at 3 p.m. So ordered Judge Kaplan. So basically, Roberta and E. Jean are going to get the opportunity to object to this, and we'll see if they do. I mean, I don't know why they would. 91 million is 91 million. And E. Jean apparently is celebrating. It sounds like they are not going to object to this. Here is what Adam Klasfeld reported. He said that E. Jean evidently has a newsletter. So she sends people, who also have TDS emails every day or whatever. Maybe she shares her blue forest with them. But she says, apparently in her newsletter wrote this: though the illustrious Robbie Kaplan, that's the lawyer below, is strong enough to yank a golden toilet out of the floor at Trump Tower and toss it through the window, this bond saves Robbie the trouble of showing up with U.S. Marshals on Monday to do so, right? So these people are just celebrating, property theft, really. It's legal through a judge's order, but it's, in my opinion, created out of a corrupt fictional story that even the jury didn't believe as to the R count. So a lot going on there, obviously. A lot of statements on this and reaction. New York Times tells us the bond came from this outside insurance company. Federal jury obviously gave her $83 million. The bond is a promise from the company offering it. So the company is called Federal Insurance Company. It's an arm of the insurance giant called Chubb, to cover Trump's judgment if he loses and fails to pay. So Mr. Trump must pay the company a premium and pledge collateral, including as much cash as possible. So they came up with some deal to get it in, get it done. Here's, collateral, here's property, whatever. Now, Alina Habba said that the judge should accept it. A Trump campaign spokesman, his name is Stephen Chung, he said in a statement that the bond had been filed in the full amount of the baseless judgment in the Democrat-funded Carroll witch hunt. And yeah, it's true. Remember that guy who hung out with Jeffrey Epstein, Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, he was funding a lot of this. And in fact, remember, Roberta Kaplan was introduced to E. Jean Carroll by George Conway at a Molly Jongfest TDS party, because that's what they do. They have TDS parties where I don't know what they do. Weird times. But so much to say. Miss Carroll's lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, declined to comment. Miss Carroll called this a stupendous amount. You better believe that's true. Now, though the illustrious, she wrote about, the terms of Trump's bond have not been publicly disclosed, but the bonding companies often charge a fee between 1% to 3%. Chubb, in a statement, said it did not comment on client-specific information. And the company said these bonds are part of an ordinary and important part of the American justice system. Judge Kaplan gave E. Jean some time to respond to this, and Trump is appealing a bunch of stuff all over the place. And a lot of people are very upset about that. So one of those people is this guy, and his name is Jim Acosta, very upset that Donald Trump has the possibility to appeal in America. How dare he have due process? Why should the Constitution apply to him at all? This is ridiculous. It's enough already. We've heard enough. It's time to just seize everything, all of his assets, and eliminate the Trump name from all eternity.
And Jim, what do you say to all those Americans out there who are watching this, who are frustrated and say, Trump is getting away with breaking the law, that he files appeal after appeal, he tries to delay every proceeding that's brought against him in a way that is it just goes against what our judicial system should be about? I mean, isn't he treated differently than just about everybody else?
Yeah, he is treated differently. He gets charged with multiple crimes, multiple Democrat-funded lawsuits. They try to remove him off ballots. They imprison anyone who even works for the dude. They try to de-license, disenfranchise anyone else who thought about it. It's crazy. The fact that he's appealing something is just his right as an American citizen. But Acosta's had enough of it.
In this country, I mean, just about anybody else would not have the ability to appeal things.
No one would have been charged.
Kingdom come.
Well, actually, they do have the ability to do that. That's part of our justice system.
Well, but for all practical purposes, that doesn't happen. I mean, the vast majority of defendants out there don't have the resources to drag everything out in umpteen different cases across the country.
He has too much money and too much resources. Not everybody gets to appeal like he does because they're poor, and they can't afford it. And it's true. That's true. Like it is true. It's hard to fight a legal case against a corrupt government. I did that for years, a long time. It's very hard. It's very expensive. It requires a lot of fortitude and a lot of willpower on behalf of the defendant in particular, and a lot of fortitude to do it. So the fact that Trump can do it is wild, first of all. The fact that he does have the resources to do it is incredible. And it's exposing to all of us the corruption that runs throughout the veins of our entire federal apparatus, not only the DOJ, but everything they touch, the FBI, DHS, and all of the other agencies combined. So Acosta crying about the appellate process. Maybe we should just get rid of trials too, should we? Jim, should we just get rid of all the trials too? You can just have, you can be the verdict, the juror, and the executioner. How about that? And they would take that. They would, enough already, all right? Just put Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and Jim Acosta on a committee, and they can dictate what works for American justice. So Trump appeals and posts $91 million, which I know, you know, these numbers are so big, they lose their meaning, but that is so much money, and it's property. It's indicative of value that was created, and our court systems and politically funded attacks are taking it away. It's insane, but it's happening in America, and they're going to do it with a bigger verdict with Letitia James right around the corner. So we're going to be here continuing to cover this outrage, and we'll follow the appeal. We'll see what else is happening in New York. My friends, thank you for subscribing and joining us as we do. Thanks for inviting someone over here to join us so that they can stay apprised of what's happening as well. We got great links down in the description below, including robertgovea.com, where we now have our calendar available so you can check out what's coming up in all these trials. And we'll look forward to seeing you back here on the next one. All right, my friends, now let's turn our attention over to Georgia. It's Fani time. Time to get into the Fani. No, delete that. Rewind, delete that. Let's get to it. Fani Willis has 2 new challengers in 2024, adding another political dynamic to this whole equation. And we already talked about Judge Scott McAfee also has a contender. And does that change the equation? Does this now put pressure on Judge McAfee? Does this cause Fani Willis to say something different or do something different now that maybe the people of Fulton County are going to be throwing her out on her butt too? We'll see. But we do have new players entering the game, and we're going to meet both of these people, including Christian Wise Smith. We're also going to see Courtney Kramer, these 2 new candidates who are challenging the biggest Fani in Georgia. Do they know what they're in for? I don't think so. Here is the background from Atlanta Journal-Constitution. They say Fani's facing 2 new challengers in her re-election bid. Uh-oh. Her critics are trying to make her pay a price at the ballot box for her election interference case against former President Trump. I think it's also more than that, though. They're not trying to make her pay a price just for that RICO case. Like, yeah, that's a problem, obviously. But it's a little bit more than that. It has to also do with the fact that she was indicting her special prosecutor and grifting $700,000 off the taxpayers of Fulton County and Georgia. So they say this is now something, they throw that in there. Oh, and her past relationship with the deputy. It's like an afterthought. They just kind of tuck it in there. Her critics try to make her pay a price for her prosecution of Trump for interfering with the election and his allies, and also her past relationship with Nathan Wade. Christian Wise Smith, who I have a video from, said he plans to qualify to challenge Big Fani in a Democratic primary on May 21, but he hasn't yet formally filed the paperwork to do that. He is a progressive, a former prosecutor, former city solicitor. He finished in 3rd place to Willis in 2020 in the race and waged a failed campaign for AG in 2022. So he's already run a couple times and lost. Now, meanwhile, Courtney Kramer, she also filed paperwork to run for the seat as a Republican. A LinkedIn page that matched her description indicated she worked as a litigation consultant for Trump's legal team, and the 2020 election, and helped handle other election-related matters for the state GOP legislatures and the Georgia Republican Party. She could not be immediately reached for comment. Now, Willis is the odds-on favorite. Fulton County is a very blue county, Democrat stronghold, so the Republicans obviously not going to win. She's one of the most recognizable political figures in the state, if not the nation. Yeah, of course she is, because she was indicting her lover. She has the advantage of incumbency and has amassed a small fortune in her campaign account. Wild, because apparently she's like a hero to people. But Weiss, Smith, and Kramer could still present a political headache by trying to turn the race into a proxy fight over the Trump case. And they could bring more scrutiny to Willis's relationship with her boyfriend, Nathan Wade. The lovebirds. That's at the center of this disqualification effort. Weiss Smith received about 23% of the Democratic vote back in the primary. He ran on a platform that included vows to no longer seek the death penalty, eliminate cash bail, decriminalize drug possession. He went on to endorse Paul Howard in the runoff, saying he was troubled that Willis had got support of the Atlanta Police Union. Willis easily defeated Howard, a 6-term incumbent, in a head-to-head runoff. And in the wake of the racial justice protests, the summer of love, fiery but mostly peaceful, after George Floyd's murder, or, you might say his collapsed heart because it was filled with arterial sclerosis, hypertension, fentanyl, COVID, marijuana, everything. Anyways, Weiss Smith also advocated for shifting criminal justice strategies, including moving away from overcharging cases. And he also endorsed a restorative justice approach. It's the weirdest thing for prosecutors to be like arguing to release criminals. It's topsy-turvy world that we're in. It's weird as a defense attorney. It's like not how I came up. Our prosecutors were like, your guy looked at the methamphetamine. Okay, but he didn't touch it or sniff it or look at it or lick it or sell it or anything. But he looked at it. I'm like, yeah, but that's not illegal. Like, yeah, it is. Death penalty. I was like, sheesh, relax, psychos. That whole thing has changed very quickly. Not in Arizona, but in a lot of other places. So wild. And including Fani Willis, remember that she said that they were trying to train her staff to deviate defendants in front of black male judges who are not Republicans because they get lighter sentences. What are they doing? Anyways, 2 years later, in the Democrat primary for Attorney General, Weiss Smith was crushed by then Senator Jen Jordan, and Kramer appears to have worked for other people as well. Willis told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution she is unconcerned by the challenge. Says, this is a democracy we live in, so people have a right to run for office, but they should come prepared for a fight. They should know my heart is still in this work. My heart will continue to be in this work. Something's in that work over there. Anyway, so, all right, that's who these people are. Let's watch a little bit more about them. We've got some videos queued up to hear from them. And this is Willis, Christian Weiss Smith, who is running to compete against Willis, talking about new filings in the Georgia case on MSNBC.
Well, first reaction, this is, I think, to be expected, right? The prosecution is going to do everything they can to make sure that they get all of their evidence admitted. And so you're going to see a lot of people connected to Trump who may look like surprise guests, but they may be very, very vital when they're getting certain pieces of evidence admitted. And we're going to see a lot of conflicts of interest. We see one of the attorneys, Steve Gruppert, Attorney Grutman, for example, who represented Raffensperger at one point, is now a Chesboro's attorney. So it's going to be interesting to see how the judge rules on that, whether or not he can continue to be the attorney for Chesboro or not.
There are certainly a lot of conflicts of interest. Fanny's got a pretty big one. So that's one clip. Let's take a look at one other one and see what else he had to say. And this is where they're talking about that grand juror. Remember that grand juror, Elizabeth Coors, I believe her name, or Emily Coors, I think was her name. And she was out just strange, very excited about her role. I kind of like wanted Trump to, be like the president so he could come in and I could, ask him a question and he could. We're like, what do you think you're on? Like a reality TV show or something, lady? Relax. So they brought him on to ask about this. Here's what that sounded like.
In County, Georgia, he also ran against Fani Willis in the Democratic primary for DA in 2020. Thanks very much for coming on the program. Appreciate it. All right, first, let me just get your reaction to all these interviews that she's doing.
I wish she would not have done this.
The grand juror.
I mean, everything around former President Donald Trump seems to be always in the media, always a circus, always along these lines.
Let me ask you this. Is it illegal what she's doing, or is it just improper?
I mean, she's skating on a very thin line. I'm pretty sure the judge gave a gag order about not divulging any of the information that took place in the special grand jury proceedings, and she's being very careful not to discuss specific things that they talked about in those rooms or specific things in the report. So I think very much improper. I think it's a fine line about whether or not she's doing anything illegal right now.
All right, so that is another exchange from him. Nothing too fiery on either of those. I think they're kind of just, benign statements. This one was a little bit more interesting. This one was captured by Phil Holloway. Phil Holloway says that Mr. Smith, Christian Y. Smith, also posted this somewhere. And shout out to our friend Phil Holloway, doing some great reporting recently and a great follow and great analysis. He's over at Phil Holloway ESQ, doing some great work. And he posted this. He says, Mr. Smith is here. He's campaigning on calling out white supremacy. He said it's time for a Fulton DA who focuses on actual crime that Fulton County residents care about. Is that white supremacy going on? So he says, we need leaders who aren't afraid to call out white supremacy. If we want different, we have to vote different. Justice for all, Georgia politician. Okay. Well, maybe he'll beat Big Fani. Maybe that's like the ticket. Yeah, white supremacy. Yeah, down with white supremacists. It's like, what do you... Okay. So, all right, that's that guy. Now, he might have a fighting shot, if Fani is taken out by this scandal, if they even care about that there in Fulton. But here is the other contender who probably is not going to, go very far as a Republican in this county, but definitely has some good takes on what's been happening. Her name is Courtney Kramer, and she's been around on some of the inner tubes and interwebs, and on this show, she was on with John Friedrichs on Outside the Beltway over on Real America's Voice, and here is what some of that conversation sounded like when she was reacting to this case.
Here.
John, like I said, she spent 2.5 years on this investigation. She had to do something.
Fani.
She had to convene a grand jury. She had to push that grand jury, in my opinion, to bring these charges. I thought it was interesting yesterday in her press conference that she said everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But I think that the way the media has portrayed this, they have basically painted everybody as guilty. And that is not how the rule of law is supposed to work. That's not how our justice system works. I think that this is a complete dereliction of duty. I think it is going to create a chilling effect on anybody who challenges an election properly and under the Georgia election code, like President Trump did. And it also begs the question of, why is Fani Willis bringing this? If you look at Arizona and Michigan, the attorney generals in both of those states brought the lawsuits against their electors for challenging the election. So why Fani and why now? I think that in the coming months, she said that she wants to try to have this trial within 6 months. I think that that's absolutely unrealistic. There's going to be a ton of motions that are going to be filed, barring whichever judge is actually going to pick this case up. I think you're going to see a lot of evidence come out in the coming months and in the coming year that is going to vindicate all of these defendants. And I think what they did was proper. They did it with authority. And what they did is they stood up for freedom. And I think that this just shows that the left is persecuting every Republican they can, any conservative they can, just to try to win. And this is a absolute expansion of RICO. Let's just be real. There's never been a former president, a president, or anybody that's been indicted under RICO for election charges. That's absolutely unfathomable, in my opinion. But I think that just once discovery starts happening, you're going to see some of these communications coming out, these emails coming out of what happened during that time. And I think you're going to see that what happened with David Shafer and with President Trump and with everybody involved, what they did was lawful.
Great hit right there. Well done. Courtney Kramer. And that clip was some time ago. That was an August 15, 2023 clip. Pretty prescient, as they say, able to prognosticate what was coming. And I think she's dead right about it. A lot of what we've seen here is not even criminal. I mean, we had a couple plea deals, 4 of them actually, that were all diversion deals. There are going to be no convictions for Sidney Powell and Jenna Ellis, all right? 2 of the people who were paraded around on TV day in and day out. No convictions for them? Yeah, because these cases are a joke. Because these two, Nathan and Wade and Fani Willis, were out there indicting each other at all hours of the night, going to Belize, Napa Valley, all over the place, having a lot of fun while they were grifting off of the taxpayers. Now, in Georgia, we got Biden and Trump both appearing to make their pitch to voters. Here is a bit of a report from the local
Time now
news.
is 6:15. This morning, plans are being finalized for President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump's campaign stops in Georgia this weekend. The events are ahead of next week's primary. President Biden will be in Metro Atlanta, although a specific location hasn't been released just yet. Mr. Trump will be in Rome. Former President Trump has all but locked in his spot now as the Republican nominee after Nikki Haley dropped out of the race.
Nikki's out of here, and let's see.
The nominees seemingly in place. You may be wondering what's the point of voting in Georgia's primary. But Emory political science professor Dr. Andra Gillespie says there is still a lot riding on our state.
Yeah, Georgia.
Both candidates are here. Both are contesting for the state, which was narrowly won by President Biden in 2020. And so both of them are showing that they care an awful lot about Georgia and that they see winning these states as actually vital to their overall electoral college plan.
Early voting ends tomorrow, Election Day next Tuesday, March 12th. You can read about.
All right, Georgians, get out there and vote. And that's going to be for the primary, the presidential primary. And then I think there is a different primary for the judge and for Fani and all the others later on. But that is what's happening in Georgia. And we're keeping close eyes on what's happening there. Of course, yesterday, we were all a little bit, let down. We all got a little fannied, we got fannied on the show yesterday after the Board of Ethics canceled their meeting when we were here trying to live stream that puppy. And Viva, our friend Viva, who's right next door on YouTube at Viva Fry and on Locals at vivabarneslaw.locals.com and on Rumble, all the places, he was just stopping by and he happened to catch the moment of pain and the moment of horror that we all experienced. And Viva had a great follow-up on this. So the question, really, if you watch the full video, the question that we had from Viva was, why was that Board of Ethics hearing canceled? It was canceled, as Viva said, because they actually didn't have jurisdiction. And he explained the whole thing. And he was watching us while we were here getting ready to stream the hearing. And here's what he says about this. Here's Viva.
Suspicious and favorable to Fani Willis having these two ethics complaints dropped the day of. They were supposed to be live streamed as well. And I was watching Robert Gouveia watching the Watchers as he was about to stream this. And I could literally see the moment his heart broke when he got the news from Atlantic News First, or whoever was reporting the news, that the hearing was actually canceled because these two complaints were removed from the docket for the reasons given, which seemed to check out.
And Doug Reardon. Wow, look at this. Okay, my friends, it might be canceled. Oh, look at this. Doug Reardon says the Fulton County Board of Ethics was set to hear 2 citizen complaints against Fani Willis today at 10 a.m. When we showed up, here, Doug Reardon is there. He is a reporter from ATL News First. And he says, when we showed up, we were told the complaints were abruptly removed from the agenda.
What you say. Now, I don't know what code of ethics applies to district attorneys or how one would file an ethics complaint against Fani Willis if one were so inclined, but I'm sure whoever is so inclined will find that answer somewhere. But at the very least, we know the story is not total caca. It smells a little fishy, and corruption is one hell of a drug, not even once, and politics is a dirty business filled with corruption. But at the very least, the story seems to make sense. Lucky Fani. All right, I got it.
Lucky Fani indeed. Okay, so shout out to Viva. I was laughing my little caboose off yesterday because that's how I felt. And, that right there, you can see it. You can see the pain in my eyes. You can see it in the cheek. Hurt. I was hurt. I got fannied, man. We all got fannied together. So, my friends, we'll try not to let that happen here. We try to avoid that. Try not to get into that, too often. But it happens. It happens. We all felt it, man. We all got it. I know. It was all of us together. I know we're all in it together. We did it. Anyway, so shout out to our friend Viva, my friends. And did you see this, my friends? Oh my goodness. Ultra shout out to Viva. He just crossed 600,000, hit 600,000 subscribers over there. So if you're not already subscribed, man, I don't know what the heck you're doing. It's a great channel. I love his work and he's a good friend and a great dude. So shout out to Viva for crossing 600,000. I watched this last night. I was laughing my butt off and he was at 599. So he just crossed. So ultra shout outs. Let's go, Viva, on the road to 1 million, baby. Let's go. So very cool. Shout out to Viva, who's also doing some great coverage over there. He's covering a bunch of stuff, but he's paying good attention to Fani and all the other cases. So shout out to Viva, my friends. We, of course, are going to be covering this as well. All of the election litigation, all of the election challengers taking place in Georgia, we'll be here covering it. Thank you for checking out our channel. Thanks for subscribing, my friends. And we'll see you back here on the next one. All right, and so let's jump into our final segment on the day. And it's more Fani business. The defense fights to reopen evidence in the Fani Willis case. The disqualification hearing is currently pending, waiting a ruling from Judge Scott McAfee, unless he decides we want to hear more about this. Of course, we know we've got a prosecutor who is a current prosecutor in one county over who says she heard Terrence Bradley on the phone with Fani and heard Fani tell him that they're coming after us, and you don't have to say anything. A prosecutor said that. We also had a law professor who confirmed that Terrence Bradley told him the relationship started between Nathan and Wade and Fani back at a judicial conference in 2019. We got cell phone evidence and more that we're all trying to see what's inside and unpack all of this. And Fani herself has said, hey, maybe we should reopen evidence because they found that wine guy back from Napa Valley who said that Fani paid in $400 in cash or whatever. So then let's reopen it. Let's do it. Let's get into business. Shafer, David Shafer, a co-defendant, is now submitting through his attorney a request to reopen the evidence. Here is what that looks like. You see, State of Georgia versus David James Shafer, and he is on the X platform. You look him up, you can follow him. He is crowdfunding and crowdsourcing his defense. Would be a great thing to do if you have a little extra to share some his way, because he's doing good work on this. Filed in the Superior Court of Fulton County. He tells us in reply, in support of reopening the evidence, and he wants to oppose Fani's opposition to strike the proposed testimony. Here's what he tells us. All right, Your Honor, Judge McAfee. Our client, defendant David Shafer, respectfully files this reply in support of reopening the evidence and in opposition to Fani's motion to strike proposed testimony. We're also replying to and opposing the state's response in opposition to reopening evidence and a motion to strike the proposed testimony. So Fani does not want Cindy Yeager, the prosecutor, or Manny Aurora, the law professor, do not want their evidence to come in. They say, the prosecution, Fani, objects to the defense's request to reopen the evidence as it relates to the defendant's motion to disqualify Fani and Nathan Wade. They do not want us to reopen this to present the evidence of the prosecutor, who happens to be the co-deputy chief assistant DA with the Cobb County DA's office, a co-deputy chief assistant. These names are just amazing, aren't they? Like, what is that? Like, are you the chief assistant? Chief assistant sounds pretty cool, but you're only the chief assistant. So you're the assistant, then you're the chief assistant, then you're the deputy chief assistant, but you're not that great. So like you're like a co-deputy. So it sounds like a powerful title, a powerful position, but who the heck knows? Co-deputy chief assistant, DA. All right. With Cobb County and attorney Manny Aurora, counsel for the defendant, Kenneth Chesebro. Also with him. Now, the irony, they say, of the staff of one DA's office, in this case, Fani's, objecting to a member of another DA's office who's prepared to come forward and testify about the disqualification of the other DA should not be lost on this court. Okay, it's a wild situation. One prosecutor from one county over is saying, I'm willing to come in and testify about the bad acts of another prosecutor. And the other prosecutor is objecting to the first prosecutor coming to testify about their bad acts. Bizarro world there in Georgia. Now, the state's opposition to the testimony of Ms. Yeager and Mr. Aurora is particularly perplexing in light of the fact that the prosecution itself had requested that this court accept an affidavit, one that was not sworn under penalty of perjury, from this guy, Mr. Herbert Brody, the wine guy, the wine salesperson, they say, or In the event that the court declined to adopt Mr. Brody's affidavit, they requested that Mr. Brody come in here and testify. Now, in making its request to present the testimony of Mr. Brody, the prosecution cited no alleged standards relating to the finality or failure to present evidence in a timely manner. Like, they didn't explain why they should be allowed to just introduce new evidence. But here's what they say. Well, here's the law that we'll reference if they're not going to reference it. Georgia law says the object of all legal investigation is the discovery of truth. It is the high goal that must govern and color all evidentiary and procedural rulings by a trial court. The court possesses the authority to schedule, as it deems appropriate, pre-trial conferences to hear motions, demurs, and pleas. And moreover, this court, it controls the presentation of evidence for purposes of ascertaining the truth. In this case, we, the defendants, writes the defense, have presented evidence to support a finding that the DA, Fani, and Wade, they possess conflicts of interest, that they have knowingly engaged in a pattern of forensic misconduct and have engaged in misconduct in relation to this case. The DA's conduct has created a clear appearance of impropriety, which should not be permitted to undermine public trust in the impartiality of these proceedings and the administration of justice. In the interest, writes Shafer, of the ascertainment of the truth relating to the serious issues before us about prosecutorial misconduct raised by us, the defense, the court should decline to strike the proposed testimony of Deputy Chief Assistant DA Yeager and Mr. Aurora, and should reopen the evidence to hear and consider their testimony. Respectfully submitted by Craig Gillen, Holly Pearson, 2 attorneys in a very short filing saying reopen the evidence. The law tells us that we need to get to the bottom of this. It's about ascertaining the truth. Fani introduced new evidence. She brought in the wine guide. That's great. We have a prosecutor. We want to bring her in. We also have a law professor and apparently another attorney, Attorney Manny Aurora, who is a counsel for Kenneth Chesebro. It sounds like he's also a law professor. So he would also testify about this. And obviously, Fani is not wanting any of that to come out. So we have a lot of activity here, but we're still waiting really for the judge to issue a ruling. And we have 1 week left to go on that. So 1 week from today, he said, would be when we should get a hearing within this time period. So any minute it should be dropping. Now, Alina Habba, one of Trump's attorneys, was talking about the Georgia case. And here is what she said after a big victory on Super Tuesday. She was celebrating, happy with the results, and then asked about what's going on in Trump's other cases. And here is what she said.
Amazing last night, Martha. He is really focused, and you can just tell that he's ready to get back to business. And the energy in the room said it all. No matter what they do, no matter all the garbage they try and throw at him, he is determined and undeterred, and he will continue to fight for the country so that we stop all of this madness that we're seeing with the legal lawfare, frankly.
Well, he's an incredibly resilient politician and figure of our times. He certainly has had every piece of the book thrown at him, and he still wants to be president of the United States. That's very clear. It's going to be fascinating to watch his campaign over the next 9 months as all of this unfolds. What did you make of this back and forth today as this Republican committee in Georgia listened to the evidence that will be ultimately decided by the judge, as I understand it, in terms of whether or not Fani Willis and Nathan Wade and the team will be thrown off of this Georgia election case? Alina.
I tend to agree with the clip that you played before. I think the judge obviously has a determination to make. I think that the evidence has spoken pretty clearly. There's obviously some inconsistencies that we've seen with testimony that have to be handled, but there's many levels of issues there, right? I mean, let's not talk about whether it's going to be in Congress, whether it's going to be in a court, but there's also ethical issues that will be addressed. I'm happy to say that I'm not involved with the mess that has been Georgia, but I will tell you this, she's made quite a mess for herself. I think that it'll be handled ethically. I think it'll be handled hopefully by the court. But there is no business bringing in people to prosecute and persecute somebody who's a political figure, and to do so in such a manner with taxpayer dollars in any state is problematic. It really is, and it's disturbing. But that's the state of our country right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. Once again, just watching the back and forth here. They put up that text message. Ashley Merchant had been in touch with Nathan Wade as she was preparing for this case. Right. She said, do you think it started, meaning the relationship, before she hired him? Which is obviously key. Terrence Bradley, who worked on Nathan Wade's divorce, said absolutely. It started when she left the DA's office.
That was before
and
he
was a judge in South Fulton.
Everything was speculative after that point.
Then they went back around on this about how many times he visited her condo during the time period when they say they had no romantic relationship. And watch this.
When I say frequent, do you think prior to November 1st of 2021, you were at the condo more than 10 times?
No, sir.
So it'd be less than 10 times?
Yes, sir.
Wrong. Cell phone records say differently. Not true.
So it's pinging from his house all the way down to the condo at midnight, 1 a.m. And he calls her when he gets there. And then it goes silent for 4 or 5 hours. And then, early in the morning hours, he starts pinging again, driving back, and then he texts her when he gets home.
Hey, baby,
so
this is before he gets hired in November of 21.
Yes.
Wow. She's very diligent with the details on all of this. Do you think this is going to be persuasive to the judge in Georgia, Alina?
I hope so. I think that the judge has a tough determination to make. I think, honestly, never mind any of it, the perjury issue is something that always concerns me with her. If that is the case, that's a concern. There's been too much inconsistencies. If they have forensic evidence that's clear, they're going to have to, they can't deny that, right? Yeah. Facts are facts. I know he made a comment about referring them to ethics. I think that should happen no matter what. You can't play with taxpayer dollars while trying to go after a former president. And that's the bottom line. And you also can't lie under oath, which is clearly what happened.
Yes. Shout out, Alina. Yes, you cannot lie under oath. That's perjury. And they're charging Trump and all these co-defendants with various, fraud, forgery, conspiracy charges. Fani has done all of the things that they allege the Trump people did, but she actually did them. She actually was a liar and dishonest in covering up her affairs. She was dishonest on her gift form. Nathan Wade was dishonest on his interrogatories. They all knew he was legally married. They covered this up. She came in there barging into the divorce proceedings, threatening the other side with potential prosecution for interfering with her case, and so on. So all of it, political attacks. Alina Habba's right. Going to be a long game. They're going to be in it for the win. And of course, we're going to be here to continue to cover it, my friends. And thank you for joining us as we do. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for liking this video, inviting a friend or family member to come over here and join us as we continue to cover this case and all of the rest of them as we enter into 2024. We'll love to have you here, and we will see you back here on the next one. All right, my friends. Now, that is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground, defense, fighting to reopen the evidence. Fani's got 2 new election challengers. Trump appeals and posts $91 million as bond and then change. And Judge Juan Merchan is hiding the identities of the Trump jurors as the trial looms right around the corner on the 25th of March. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. Let's see what you have to say about this. Of course, we are going over here to watchingthewatchers.locals.com, our members-only community. We've got live streams in the mornings and on Saturdays. We'll be here tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern for our morning stream on Locals. And then we're doing some members-only lodge stuff in the aftermath. But come join us, my friends, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We'd love to see you over there for our after parties. Who's here today? Look at this one. First one in the house is from Flagpole Guy. Says, hello from U.S. Flagpole Guy, World HQ. Says, go Trump, baby. That's a nice flag. Look at those flags from Flagpole Guy. That's the Trump flag. That's a good one. Here's one. Trump 2020 floor in the bleachers. Good stuff. Flagpole Guy in the house. We got Glocky says, oh no, Joe Biden's, he's out of the office. He's in Delaware this weekend. We talked about this morning. Joe Biden is going back into the resuscitation chamber in Delaware. I'll be out of the office in recovery from the State of the Union. All those amphetamines, it takes a while for them to, get out of your system. Thanks, Glocky. Show Bizzle says, happy Friday, Rob. Look forward to your show every day. Show Bizzle. Man, I look forward to spending time with you too, Show Bizzle. I really do. I love going through what's happening out there because there's a lot happening and they are wild times. And it's easier to get through it when we're all together. Hey, B.H. Williams says, you remember how Rush, all hail Rush, El Rushbo, EIB Network, greatness on loan from God? You know, Rush Limbaugh was right 99.7% of the time. 99.7% of the time. I can't even think about those numbers. We're like 94, 95%, right? Sometimes on a good day, 96. But to get to like 99.7%, even to go from 98% to 99%, it's like, college to pro. Once you get into the 90s, they're just shades of excellence. Rush Limbaugh, 99.7 on average, sometimes 8, sometimes 6, you never know. Amazing. Hey, remember he used to have the updates theme songs? We need theme songs for Fani and Angeron and Big Bad Jack Smith, etc. that Rob can play before he starts the subject. What do you think? I love it. I love it. I love it. I miss Rush, man. The country was a lot better when we had Rush at the helm. That golden EIB microphone, talent on loan from God. We miss him. We do. We need the theme songs. Like, remember Barack had some songs? I remember the Barack songs. Yeah, I miss Rush. He's a good dude, man. Rest in peace, Rush. We miss you here. Thanks, BH, for the comment. Lady Ice. Oh, my goodness. Lady Ice is a grandma. Okay, so Lady Ice, thank you for sharing that. Says, I'm a grandma, but I'm asking for prayers. My son's wife had her baby last Saturday, but really super preemie, 26 weeks due to mom getting eclampsia, so had to have emergency C-section. Oh no, for Lady Ice. She was only 1 pound, 7 ounces and can fit in your hand, but so far so good. She doesn't seem to have anything wrong other than not being done yet, but she needs to stay in the NICU for 3 months and has a long road ahead of her. So prayers to the Lady Ice family, Grandma Lady Ice. Son's wife has a little baby, 1 pound, 7 ounces, a little girl. And so we're sending some prayers over your way, Lady Ice, and to the Lady Ice household, and for the little one who just entered the world. Prayers to you on behalf of the fam. Magoose is here. Welcome aboard, Magoose. Thank you for joining us. Magoose, our newest membo. Tony, hey, it's the Munkets is here. Says, 5 new membos are joining us. G. Usury, Carolyn Hall's joining us. Mainer's here, Mama Pillow, and Renee G. Courtesy of Tony, hey, Munkets. We got Mima says, hey, Rob, it's been a while since we've heard something about Tish, Angeron, and Trump. Did you hear something about it? Well, we had a full day today on that, actually. We haven't heard much on Angeron or Tish, but we definitely heard about E. Jean Carroll. So the Angeron Tish thing, I think they still have some time on that while they're cobbling together some money on that one. Yeah, it's a good question. Good to see you, Mima. Thanks for being a membo and for sending in a nice super. Says, Patrick Parker's here. Oh no, says, I hate to ask this question, but why do I have an uneasy feeling that something bad might happen to Trump? I don't think you're alone in that, Patrick. It's one of those things we don't like to put into the universe. But yeah, a lot of other things they're breaking glass in case of emergency. It's like if they're willing to wreck your free speech, shatter the whole economy like they did back during the pandemic, start new global wars. What else are they going to do? Go to the source? Who knows? All right. Carson May is the little baby who is joining us. Prayers for little Carson May and the Lady Ice household. It's going to be a beautiful success. We're praying hard for Carson May. We got this from Johnny 5 says, maybe the ultimate motivation by Bragg to withhold the jury's ID is to hide the fact that the jury selection will be 100% selected due to their political affiliation. How better to hide activity that blocks any conservative from jury selection and from trial? Exactly. Right. That's the point. Yeah. It's like, we'd like to look them up. If the defense can't look them up, then you don't know who they are, right? They might be, total blue lefties. And you might say that person is clearly biased because their X feed says this. That's why you can't see the names when it's Trump. Everyone else can, though. Bruce Rice, what's up, Bruce? Says, gee, hey, good evening, Rob. I love the show. It's the perception. What does it matter at this point? It was speculation. I said it's not an issue, it's a matter. In quotes. Bruce Rice, a membo for 17 months. Thank you, Bruce. That is 2 babies coming up. And it kind of reminds me of Hillary. What difference at this point does it make? MAGA Hat Stay says Trump gets free media coverage when his court cases are going on. I think it helps his campaign. You might be right about that, MAGA Hat. Yeah, he'll be able to come out every day from his scam trial, give a pitch, but it's going to be 6 weeks. 6 weeks. That is grueling for anybody. To sit there for 6 weeks. We got this one. What's going on from Flagpole Guy? Says, Rob, were there any woke snowflakes in 1776? Probably. Here's to our founders who took part in civil unrest. Well, against the British. It's not illegal or immoral if there's tyrannical power. Make masculinity great again. From Flagpole Guy. Indeed, but we always encourage everybody to follow the law and be legal. But thank you, Flagpole Guy, for being here. Andres says, what I've learned from Bragg, don't pay your bills and you won't be charged. If you pay your bills and keep records, you are a criminal. Yeah, especially if your last name is Trump. You're in big doo-doo. Knox Bierman is here. Says, TGIF all, what a roller coaster of a week. It has been. This has been a wild week. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We had some good Fani action in the house. Gross. But it's true. We had a lot going on. It was fun. Knox says, some folks seem thrilled that Biden could actually stand up and yell without falling. In my mind, anyone who can juggle 4 criminal cases, however many number of civil cases, can probably handle the presidency. Yeah, Trump has a lot going on. There's no doubt about that. And the physical and mental fortitude to hang through it all. Lady Ice says, I would say both. Plus, thinks she's way smarter than she is. Playing out of her league, has EMTDS big time. Extreme MAGA Trump derangement syndrome. Clown show from Lady Ice. Hey, 59 minutes, which is 1 minute faster than 60 minutes, is a new supporter. Welcome aboard. Flagpole Guy shared this one. Says, remember, our founders lost everything after they fought for America's freedom. Let's not let Trump hang out to dry. Help him by donating to his cause. Make sure your donation goes to him and not to Win Red. Hey, Fred Pedamonte's here. He says, oh, I messed up. This is supposed to be a $91,630,000 super chat. Well, Fred, you can try again. Just try that again. But you don't need to do it for the full amount. Just try it for $91,629,998. Just try that one again. I'm sure it'll work this time. We could use it. We could use it, Send it over here, Fred. Okay. If you can't do it, that's okay. $2, I guess, is good. Thank you, Fred. But did you know, my friends, this is Johnny, who used to hang out on Epstein's Island, this little rascally dog from our friend Fred. Thank you, Fred. Good effort. I appreciate it. I wanted to go through. I'd love it if it did. Knox says, oh, yeah, and run a winning campaign. Donald Trump is thriving under pressure. Biden is getting pressure sores. He's not looking good. He's looking rough every single day, rougher and rougher. Wendy W. says, what's up, Wendy? Bringing in, hey, Wendy's bringing in membos. April M, Kat J, Sheila P, Eric's coming in, Christine E, all gifted membos, courtesy of Wendy W, who is a membo, bringing in new membos. Great to have you. Thank you, Wendy. We got April M says, Kaplan's spouse is Rachel Levine, employed by the Biden administration. Is that a conflict of interest? No, I don't think legally, but that's interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. And that's New York, D.C. That's just what happens. I did not know that. So Lewis Kaplan's wife works in the Biden administration. Incredible. Thanks for the detail on that one. It's like, I feel like you could put together, you guys have seen that meme with that Charlie guy from that one show, and he's got the cork board with all the yarn all over the place. Yarn all over. Like, I'm pretty sure you could do that with all the Trump, what's happening with the Trump litigation. And you'd see all of it. You'd see, okay, the judges go back to the White House, goes back to the White House. We're starting to put it together in our minds. Roger is here. Roger N says, how can he post so much bond when his property valuations were fraudulent? Yeah, good question. Maybe Tish will indict him. Is it possible that he does actually have valuable property that he put up for collateral? Or are the bondsmen in on the fraud? Yeah, how could he mortgage or leverage in escrow his Mar-a-Lago property for $90 million if it's only worth 18? Confusing. I don't know. Letitia is going to have to explain it to us, Roger. Thanks for that. We got Glockies here. Says, first sitting president in U.S. history declared legally incompetent to stand trial. That's basically what the Her report said. I agree with, yeah, that's the conclusion. Hey, here's one from Glocky. Says, when you've done your taxes, but you still owe Ukraine $1,800. But we all do. We have to save our country by contributing to Ukraine. Here's one from Linda. What's up, Linda? Our newest supporter in the house. And Spuds is on local. Says, does E. Jean Carroll call her publication the Crazy Cat Lady's Home Journal? Probably something more vulgar than that, because her cat's name, I think, was a genital. We have this from Michael S. Says, illegals are given IDs and paper to fly for free, unlimited commercially. And other traffickers got busted in Polk County, and I shared the story on my ex. Shout out to Michael Shorey. Michael Shorey shared a story on X. So go follow him if you want to check that story out. Yeah, and they get flown in here on that CBP1 app. And I think Joe Biden has flown in like 350,000 of them. Hey, it's the Munkets. Bring it in. Silent Rage, Chris C., Doctor Who Eric, Mike Lee's coming in, and Save America Trump is coming in to our Membo community, courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Very great. Thank you, Tony, for bringing in the newest of Membos. Angry Bellsprout says, thanks for those early streams the last few days. Too early for me to catch live, but no Rob will be up extra early to see that Fanny getting exposed. That's right. Got to get up early to get that Fanny. You know, sometimes you got to just get up to see it, just to make, it's a sight to see. You don't want to miss it. So we're here. That's what we do. And it was fun. It was fun. It was a little bit of a change in schedule, but certainly fun. I'm glad we got to catch what we caught. And thanks for being here and joining us, Angry Bellsprout. We got this one from Glocky. Says, Ronna McDaniels finally stepped down, and now Trump was able to get everyone he wanted put in. So in the RNC funding arm. So it's now on Trump and his people to ensure Republicans start ballot harvesting and winning. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, they better raise some serious money and we better get out the vote. Like whatever the Republicans were doing recently has not been good, and shared the link for a Breitbart article. Thank you for that, Glocky. Flagpole guy says, Wade pinged all the way down his whole time there and all the way home. Wade got ping-a-langed. He certainly did. He certainly did get a ping or two. That's for sure. Yeah. Andres is here. Says, Mr. Govea, please remind the folks to get involved and join your caucus and be a precinct leader and go to city council meetings. It is a good reminder. Definitely to get involved and stay engaged. I really think is also important. Staying engaged, because we get disconnected and then the energy dissipates and the other side outmaneuvers us. We don't want that. Warrior Heart says, all hail the Watcher fam. The best. It's great to have you here, Warrior Heart. Thanks for joining on Locals and for shouting out the fam. We got Jennifer says, it's hilarious watching Rob watch Viva watching Rob. Inception at its finest. Great show as always. That's how do you think of that? That is funny. And then I was watching myself. Ah! I was. We're gonna turn this off and turn this back on. Anyway, it's good to see you, Jennifer. It's funny. Viva's hilarious, man. That guy's funny. Tammy's here, a membo for 6 months. This is the funniest Fanny show in all of Georgia. It is funny. 6 months, 3 months to a baby, Tammy. Thanks for being here. It has been a heck of a show in Georgia. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. They keep doubling down, and apparently that's the strategy moving forward. Elizabeth, what's up? Sending in the Shibu. Ha, ha, ha. Elizabeth, thank you for that. Very generous of you today, and I'm glad you joined us. We got Rob is here. Says, Marjorie Taylor Greene got Biden to say illegal, and then they all flipped out about it. Joaquin Castro and others. No one's illegal, okay? Don't be so offensive and racist. Bucks Dalla says, they lied to my mama. How do I get you to promote on YouTube? They lied to my mama. Well, that's incredibly rude. We love our mamas here. And it's not appropriate to lie to your mama. You know, be honest with your mama. Mama went through a lot to get you on this planet, all right? Went through a lot of work. So, Bucks Dollar, sorry they lied to your mama. There will be justice, though. The universe always corrects those wrongs. So thank you, Bucks Dollar, for that one. Let's say hello to our friends on X. And then, of course, we're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. We'd love to have you join us if you want to come over. But who is on the X platform? We got Who's Here. Yeah, this was a very weird. This is when Joe Biden's LSD kicked in. So he was on amphetamines and apparently LSD as well. So it was a scary one. Hey, what's up? We got this one from Vientikis saying, smack that Fanny. Danny's here. Captain Snow's here. Says, Rob, here's a video of a tumbler I made for you with your logo. I use this one at work, but I have other new ones for you and the engraved wallets for you. I just managed to get to drive over to your post office and have it put in your P.O. box. Whoa! How cool is that? So let me take a look at this. So look at this, man. How cool is this? Did you iron it? Did you laser engrave that? Whoa, man, that's cool. That's our logo. That's the Watcher logo, baby. I love that. Okay, so that, my friends, is from Captain Salty. What a nice thing to do. freedomgear.org. Owner of freedomgear.org. What a nice thing. Thank you for that. So that's on my X platform. How cool is that? Wow, what a nice thing. Thank you for saying that. Okay, so that's from Captain Salty. And I just like that on my X. Goofy for Jesus is here. We got Raven Madness. Despotism on the Rise is in the house. Crypto Nerd. We got, I don't know. No, I don't think that's Kaplan's wife. Maybe it is. I think that's the Admiral, right? That's it's our Admiral. America's Admiral or something. I don't know what it is. All right, what's going on? Okay, so my friends, let us see that. That's what's going on over on the X platform. Amazing. Thank you for following us over there on X. Rob Govea ESQ is the platform there. But we are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com to hang out with our Watcher fam, and we're going to see you over there on the Locals Members Only After Party. We also have robertgovea.com. It's our website, so you can get the calendar. The calendar is now up. We are populating it with a bunch of new stuff. So all of the Trump stuff, we're getting it all added to the calendar. It's free. You can add it to your calendar, and you can set notifications. So when I move the show around or when whatever happens, it'll update and you'll never miss a thing. We also have our mind map and our newsletter. So if you click here, you can fill out your name, email, you'll get the mind map and you'll get the show notes delivered to your inbox. And that way you don't miss what's going on. PDFs are here under reports. You can read all of the reports here and see what is cooking. All the PDFs are inserted inside the posts. And we'd love to have you join us at robertgovea.com on the newsletter. So, my friends, that is it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Before we do, shout out to our mods and our meme smiths, including Vientikis Prime, our friend K-Bean. We got Just Cause, Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu, Beyond Geo, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek, Dog Digger, Donut Mind Me, all modding down the fort for us, keeping things nice and beautiful. Our friend Sleepy Dog Lee on X, Nathan N810, and of course Geegum Geegum modding the fort down for us. And this one came in from Geg. Geg says 324,000 were flown in. Divide that by 178 per 737. That's 1,800 flights. Flight trackers, though, have recorded 7,300 flights, which points to over 1.4 million total flown into the U.S. Get ready for the U.S. administration to admit another 1.1 million when they're forced to. 7,000 flights. Yeah, it's an orchestrated invasion by our own government that we're living through. Disgusting. But my friends, it has been a heck of a week. We had a lot of fun this week. There's a lot more to come. And so I'm always so grateful that we get to go through this together. It's a hugely amazing and incredible part of my day. And I'm grateful to have you join us on this journey. We are going to pause on today's show and on this week, but that doesn't mean our work ends. It's just an appropriate time for us to unplug, relax a little bit, get outside, recharge our energy battery tanks, and come back on Monday rejuvenated and restored so that we can get back into it with a clear head, a clear mind, a renewed vision and sense of purpose and all the good things, and we get right back into it. And so, my friends, have yourselves an amazing weekend and a beautiful, beautiful Friday. We will see you back here on Monday, but we need to see you right back here on Monday so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful weekend and a beautiful evening, my friends. I'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye.